President opposes acts to spoil financial crimes legislation, announces increase in stipend for Amerindian village leaders, and the Surinamese National Assembly Speaker meets the President for talks. These and other stories in this week's edition of The Diary, the Government Information Agency program that provides a recap of the highlights of the country's president for the week October 19 to 25. Tibin Krause, your host, now for the details. The National Two-South Council meeting was successfully hosted, save for a few that used the occasion to stage a picket exercise. But during the 5-day conference, the head of state dedicated most of his time interacting with the Amerindian village leaders on issues of importance. News about presidential grants to be delivered this year brought applause from the village leaders who gathered at the Guyana International Conference Center for engagements with the government. Presidential grants are among several means through which Amerindian communities can invest in income-generating projects.
We will also be having your presidential grants this year, and hopefully right here at this meeting, once you identify the new projects that you have put forward and recommended to us are being looked at and prioritized, and we will try to satisfy some of those as well at this time.
The Presidential Grant Initiative was established in 2007 with an initial sum of $150 million, targeting social and economic needs of 140 communities. In 2008, the venture continued with an additional 20 communities becoming eligible for the grants, resulting in $160 million being allocated. During the 2010-2011 period, the subvention increased to $500 million. The presidential grants add to the numerous interventions government have been making in Amerindian communities. Among them is investment in health and education.
We have already started to build a new school at K2 to house 3 new secondary schools at K2 because Paramakatoy has now become overcrowded, and a new secondary school to house 350 students is being constructed as we speak. And here also, we will construct dormitories to house those who live a distance away. A sizable section of our doctors returning from Cuba are from the interior and Amerindian communities. This, we hope, will improve the health services greatly, and they will become good examples and good role models for our children and young people. Our Hinterland Scholarship Program has been yielding good results. Over the last 4 years, 255 graduates have either entered the workforce or have gone on to pursue higher education at home and abroad. The pass rate has been impressive, very impressive. 88.5% pass rate of our students.
With the establishment of the Guyana Red Investment Fund, Amerindians began implementing their community development projects, CDPs. At the opening of the conference, the President witnessed the signing of a document between the Guyana government and the United Nations Development Program for the titling of 13 Amerindian communities and demarcation of 33 others. But amid satisfaction with the land titling process, the President was disappointed over the setbacks the process faced.
Last year too, the joint opposition cut $18.4 billion from our LCDS, Guyana Red Plus Investment Fund project that we had in the budget. So this land titling that we will begin now should have started a year ago, and we would have saved time. And you know the old saying, they say, time is money, and we cannot regain those time. When we delay, we are left back in many occasions.
The other concern for the President was the ongoing dispute over land that many communities still face.
Some of the issues are more complicated than others. The issues of the mining and the Amerindian land issue is very, very important. And I have said very clearly to our colleagues that we need to solve those as fast as possible in a very fair manner. Because I was born in the interior area as well.
The 5-day conference included an all-day interactive session between the two showers and government officials on various issues of importance. It was at one of the discussions that the president brought more good news to the village leaders.
I've decided that we will increase the two show stipends. As you know, we are struggling with cut budgets and all of that. But we have decided that we will work to try to increase the two show stipends from $20,000 to $30,000 a month. And the deputy two shows, we will give them a stipend of $15,000 a month. And the senior councillors, those who manage some satellite village, some of them quite big satellite village, we will increase that from $15,000 to $20,000 a month.
The 7th National Two-Show Council meeting was held under the theme Culture of Good Governance for Sustained Village Economies. From the Two-Show Conference, we turn our attention to another. This one focuses on the long-serving trade union movement in Guyana, the Guyana Labor Union, which opened its 7th Triennial Delegates Congress on October 24. As the conference opened in the conference hall of Regency Suites, the Guyana Labor Union remained firm that legislators who disapprove of priority projects aimed at improving the well-being of the working class cannot be considered a friend to workers. There was heavy doubt about the political opposition's interest in the working class, considering the transformative projects that were rejected in the parliament. The Amilo Falls Hydropower Project and the Chedi Jagan International Airport, as well as the Specialty Hospital, were listed. President Donald Ramatar, who was a special invitee, argued strongly against what he described as political blackmail unfolding before the nation.
I don't think that we're going down the right road in many of these areas. What is being introduced in our politics now is blackmail politics. And I think that that will have far-reaching consequences for this country. That kind of politics can eventually, while it might look immediately to satisfy some immediate demand, in the long term, it will go to undermining our democracy.
With consensus seriously lacking, the 10th Parliament has been unable to accomplish much with the political opposition against most of government legislation. Among them, the Anti-Money Laundering and Countering the Financing of Terrorism Bill, which requires legislative approval to avoid Guyana being blacklisted for failing to conform to international standards on financial crimes.
The Anti-Money Laundering Bill should stand alone. It is so vital and so important that it should stand alone. Because all we are doing is bringing our legislation up on par with other jurisdictions in our hemisphere. The fight against money laundering and so forth. If it is not passed, it will do immeasurable harm to this country. Immeasurable harm to this country for business, but not only for business, for ordinary people, even those who collect the small piece from their family every month.
After suffering defeat with the opposition voting it down, the bill is to be retabled. Without passage of the legislation, Guyana's financial institutions and systems could become vulnerable. Foreign investments may be lost, and international capital flows could be stymied.
It will trickle down to hit and affect every single person in our society. That bill, as something of a national interest, this is a national interest. This should not stand blackmail. This should be passed as a national duty by our parliament, because the welfare of the working class, not only the business, yes, but the welfare of the working class will also be affected if this is not passed.
The Caribbean Financial Action Task Force has granted a deadline extension to November after the parliamentary fallout had resulted in the country missing the initial deadline to pass the legislation. The new deadline is in November. You are watching The Diary. There's more still ahead.
With the Amaila Falls Hydropower project, all consumers will benefit from cheap and reliable electricity. In fact, reduction in consumer tariffs will be at least 20% in 2017 and considerably more in the years ahead. This project will save residential, commercial and industrial entities approximately $3.5 billion over a period of 20 years. At present, it costs about 25 cents per kilowatt hour to generate electricity using heavy fuel oil and about 30 to 35 cents per kilowatt hour using diesel. With Amaila, Guyana will save a dramatic 20 to 25% on its fuel importation bill, or about $90 million. Investors' confidence in Guyana will increase, and the manufacturing and services sector will be significantly boosted. In the climate change arena, Guyana has already taken on a leadership role with its low-carbon development strategy, and with this Amaila project, the country could also become a leader globally for renewable power. This project will add 6 percentage points to real GDP growth during the construction phase alone. The total public debt to Guyana for this project is zero. Cheap energy is vital to the industrialization of Guyana. Thousands of jobs would be created due to industrialization. After 20 years, the hydropower facility will be 100% owned by Guyanese, and it is expected to last 100 years.
Guyana needs the Amaila Falls Hydropower project because all consumers will benefit from cheap and reliable electricity. Consumers will save approximately $3.5 billion over a period of 20 years. Guyana will save $90 million on fuel importation, and investors' confidence in Guyana will increase. More jobs will be available. All Guyanese need to come on board now. Reduction in consumer tariffs will be at least 20%.
Still on the Guyana Labor Union's triennial delegates meeting, the president turned his attention to the hydropower project and more particularly the need for the country to develop the type of infrastructure that will support the welfare of the working class people. The project that is intended to bring cheap and reliable electricity to the entire country has suffered a major setback after the political opposition withheld support to key pieces of legislation that would have cleared the way for approval of funding from the Inter-American Development Bank. The defeat of the two pieces of legislation also resulted in a reputable energy partner, Site Global, pulling its support, citing the absence of consensus from legislators. As President Ramatar addressed the Guyana Labor Union's triennial delegates meeting, the savings the country could make with hydropower were expounded.
If we look at it only from the point of view of savings, what we will save now. At the moment, we spend $40 billion a year, 200 million United States dollars a year to import fuel to generate electricity. Cheap, renewable energy will save us most of that. At the moment, we spend about $9 billion to subsidize electricity for workers and for businesses in our society. $9 billion. If we have cheaper renewable energy, that means we will be saving almost $50 billion a year that can go to many of the infrastructural works that I'm speaking about that can help our economy.
The hydroelectric amendment bill that sought to institute environmental safeguards within the area of the hydro site and the other piece of legislation that sought to up the debt ceiling were both defeated.
We were not contracting 1 cent of debt for this country. Not a single cent of debt. This was basically a put arrangement, a build, operate, and transfer arrangement that we had. And that arrangement would have seen electricity falling by 40% in the first 12 years, by 71% in 15 years, and by 91% of what you pay now in 20 years' time.
The opposition's non-support for the two bills were met with surprise, especially after government would have invited parliamentarians to review documents and conduct inspections at their request. There is now reluctance to engage the opposition parties, but a strong desire to make hydropower a reality.
We are determined that we must have hydropower in our country to develop the productive sector of Guyana.
The Guyana Elections Commission's newest commissioner, Atmaram Mangar, took the oath of office at the office of the president. The 34-year-old electrical technician replaces attorney-at-law Jaya Manikchan, who recently resigned her post. As he joins other commissioners, a new chief elections officer is still to be appointed, and according to GCOM chairman Dr. Steve Suraj Bali, applications for the post are being examined. Still ahead, legislators in Suriname visit Guyana.
Guyana needs the Amalia Falls hydropower project because all consumers will benefit from cheap and reliable electricity. Consumers will save approximately $3.5 billion over a period of 20 years. Guyana will save $90 million on fuel importation, and investors' confidence in Guyana will increase. More jobs will be available. All Guyanese need to come on board now. Reduction in consumer tariffs will be at least 20%.
With the Amaila Falls hydropower project, all consumers will benefit from cheap and reliable electricity. In fact, reduction in consumer tariffs will be at least 20% in 2017 and considerably more in the years ahead. This project will save residential, commercial, and industrial entities approximately $3.5 billion over a period of 20 years. At present, it costs about 25 cents per kilowatt hour to generate electricity using heavy fuel oil and about 30 to 35 cents per kilowatt hour using diesel. With Amaila, Guyana will save a dramatic 20 to 25% on its fuel importation bill, or about $90 million. Investors' confidence in Guyana will increase, and the manufacturing and services sector will be significantly boosted. In the climate change arena, Guyana has already taken on a leadership role with its low-carbon development strategy, and with this Amaila project, the country could also become a leader globally for renewable power. This project will add 6 percentage points to real GDP growth during the construction phase alone. The total public debt to Guyana for this project is zero. Cheap energy is vital to the industrialization of Guyana. Thousands of jobs would be created due to industrialization. After 20 years, the hydropower facility will be 100% owned by Guyanese, and it is expected to last 100 years.
Speaker of the National Assembly in Suriname, the Honorable Dr. Jennifer Geerling Simmons, arrived in Guyana for a meeting with President Donald Ramotar and other government officials in the company of a delegation of legislators. The 13-member delegation consists of both government and opposition MPs.
We could exchange some experiences about the system you have here and we have in Suriname. And so it was an informative meeting about the general politics in Guyana today, and more informative about the whole system because it is a little bit different from ours.
And what are some of your expectations as you continue your working visit to Guyana?
Well, I expect to really exchange ideas with the Guyanese Parliament to get a feel of what it is that both parliaments can get into working together, maybe issues of both populations. We expect maybe to learn something and that we can also bring something to the table so that we can decide on how we can work together as parliaments.
Her visit was long in the making and followed an invitation extended by former Speaker of the National Assembly in Guyana, Ralph Ramkaran, who sought to promote and deepen relations between the legislatures of Guyana and neighboring countries. The incumbent Speaker of the National Assembly in Guyana, Raphael Trotman, who escorted Dr. Simmons from the airport to the meeting with the President, said similar engagements are to be sought with parliamentarians in Venezuela, Brazil, and Trinidad and Tobago. The team's visit included meetings with the Foreign Relations Committee and another with all the female members of Parliament. Well, that's all in this week's edition of the Diary for the period October 19, 25. The highlights before we go. The President said he opposes any act to spoil the financial crimes legislation. He announces increase in stipend for Amerindian village leaders, and the Surinamese National Assembly Speaker meets the head of state for talks. Do join us again next week when we bring you more. I am your host, Stephen Krause. Thanks for joining us. Have a safe and a pleasant rest of the week.